Hello and welcome to your rose line journey in Europe. You didn't know you were going to be going on a rose line journey in Europe this year, did you? Well, I'm going to take you on one. I'm a little excited about recording this. I'm actually going to record this in two parts because I think otherwise it would be just too long. So many of us are getting drawn to be at the sites that are connected with the Rose Line and the activation of the Rose Line in Europe. And this has called me to Europe. Well, probably since my first trip at 22, since I seemed to go to some of these sites then without actually knowing what they were. But consciously, since 2006, I have been called to these sites. And I decided I wanted to create a video with you sharing why I'm called and what some of these sites are, and especially in regards to 2026, why I've been called to the places that I'm going to, the background behind that, any new places that I'm going to. And my reason for creating this video is to activate you, to almost like present the energy to you through my eyes, of course, but so that you can receive my stories, receive the codes that I'm sharing through my words and my experiences at some of these places. So, this is a video for anyone to watch. And if you are also interested in going to any of these places, this might just give you some little ideas, some inspiration, or perhaps you're even interested in joining me at one of these places, either this year or sometime in the future. So this is sort of for anyone, regardless of what your needs are, as long as you are interested in these particular places in Europe and activating the codes at these sites. There are way more than where I go, but I just follow my calling. And that's actually what I wanted to chat about first, is how do I choose these sites? Now, some I just keep going back to year after year because I know that there are, that I'm a bridge to take people there, that through me, they find their way to these places. And I feel so much that it's about soul group returning together and reuniting in these places. So for some of them, that's just how I feel. That's why I create journeys. But I also go to a lot of places on my own where I'm just feeling the call. And I know I have to be there and receive the activation and share something within me, within my energy body in that land. So I often don't go back to the same place again because I just need to go the once, or it might be that I wait a few years to go back again. But this has been such an it's such a deep part of who I am. And ever since I first traveled to Europe when I was 22, I've just been called back again and again and again. And, I even for about, I'm not sure how many years, 7 years maybe, had a partner in England. And so there was even another reason to keep going back. So the land is very strong for me there. And the places I go to are very much connected to the frequency of the rose line. There's a whole lot of places there that I've never been called to. Maybe we'll never go. But there are certain places that I return to over and over again. So in this video, this will be part one, probably of two parts, maybe three. I'll just see how it goes. But this is definitely part one. Well, obviously, it's the first video. And in this, I'm going to talk about a couple of places where I'm actually holding sacred journeys this year, but also talking about where I've been called to go in between those. I'm quite excited about going through this with you, and it's bringing it closer. Not that I want to wish this year away, but I leave here in April, and the journeys start from mid-May. So Let me share my screen. This is a first for me doing this on Zoom. I will share my screen so that you can get a sense of, I've got photos in some of my itineraries and I want to talk about the places in those photos. So I'm going to share. Okay, so let's begin with the Old Faithful, Provence. Now, so much of my journeying is very much about the Magdalene frequency. I talked about the Rose line, but the Magdalene in Europe, the sites associated with her are such a strong embodiment of the Rose line frequency. And Provence is one of the first places I was called, actually not the first. Uh, my journey with the Magdalene and being called to sites, Magdalene sites, actually first happened in 2006, and that was in the Languedoc part of southern France, in the Pyrenees, or not just on the French side of the Pyrenees, just north of the Pyrenees. And that's actually where it began. And it wasn't until 2007 that I went to Provence and specifically La Sainte Baume, Mary Magdalene's cave, for the first time. And when I went in 2007, I was actually scouting because I knew that in 2008 I wanted to take a group there. So I was going to research. And both the Languedoc area and which is west of Provence, and the Provence area were just definitely part of that itinerary. And so Magdalene called me to Provence to her cave. I still remember so clearly the first day I went to that cave. And actually, in this image is taken in that cave. This was taken in 2024. And this is my favorite part of that cave. So if you're watching this, I'd love to know, have you been to this cave? Are you feeling a calling to this cave? Now, legend says that this is the cave where Mary Magdalene lived at the end of her life. And then there's some reports saying she lived there 30 years. The church said she was doing, penance there. For being a prostitute, I guess. But regardless of the stories, and I'll go into that in a minute, she is associated with this cave. And so you feel her presence so strongly. You feel the codes of the Magdalene here so strongly. And so where this photo is taken is when you first go into the cave, and it's a church now, and but sort of beautifully done. It's still a cave, still looks like a cave. But off to the right, you go down some stairs and you come to this little sort of more grotto area, with this image of Magdalene, this beautiful image of her. And what I love sitting there in the corner near her is because there's also water dropping down the rocks there. And so you're just hearing this drip, drip, and it's very much the Mary energy. You feel the Mary of the waters there. And and just meditating in that space, I always find so incredibly powerful. So, if you find yourself in that cave, or perhaps you have, let me know how you found that place. But for me, that's a real portal in this particular church. So, anyway, La Sainte-Baume is the reason I go to Provence. It's the reason I hold retreats in Provence. And every year when I go back, I'm like, okay, I'm done now. I don't need to return here. I'm complete. And then I get home and Magdalene's like, oh, one more, one more. Come back with another group. So anyway, this is my first retreat, and this is full. This retreat, it does always fill up, and I think the wait list is just about as long as the amount of people going for this one. Um, because so many of us are called here. This is often the first place that we're really drawn to, that's Roseline connected, that's Magdalene connected. It's like I need to go to her cave in Provence. And it just shows that the codes in the land and in that cave are so ready. We are so ready to receive it at this time. We are ready to be activated by these. And this cave has a long history as a pilgrimage place. It's Um, in fact, the path going up, I'll scroll down in a minute. I can show you a little bit more. The path going up is like the royal way, the king's way. Um, oh, I did should have checked that before, but it's basically implying that that's where the royals would walk up to go to the church, to the cave, and it's even associated. One of those who did that is actually a Roseline being, and this is Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn did this pilgrimage with the king's wife. And what is fascinating, and if you ever want to read more about that, I recommend Kathleen McGowan's book, The Boleyn Heresy. It's fabulous. And I was so glad when I read that book because I'd received before that Anne Boleyn was part of the Rose Line. And I was a bit like, Anne Boleyn? But she was like, yeah, I am. And anyway, when I read Kathleen McGowan's book, I was like, oh, anyway. So Anne Boleyn also did this with the royals, this walk up to the cave. And it's historically been a point of pilgrimage. Mary Magdalene in southern France, she's up there. She's up there with Jesus. She's just honored. Her energy is so strong. The codes in the land there are so powerful. And I think that's why so many people, when they feel to take a pilgrimage in honor of the Magdalene and to rediscover the Magdalene in themselves, this is why they go here. Now, I've created a couple of videos here. I did one in 2024, which was at the top of, I filmed that from the top of the mountain, top of La Baume. And then I did another one last year, which was filmed at Domaine de Cornelière, which is where we stay. That's where I hold the retreats. And it's not a retreat center, it's a guest house. It's on a vineyard, but it's where I first stayed in 2007. And beautiful Philippe, who owns it, is the most glorious angel. And so whenever I've gone back and taken groups back, I've stayed with him. This year, he's actually downsized a little bit. There's not as much accommodation. And so the group is a little bit smaller this year. There's just six of us going. But it is the most sacred land. And although it's about a 25-minute drive from La Baume, you can see La Baume from the land, the actual mountain. So yeah, very sacred. But so let me just share a couple of these images with you. Oh, this is on at Philippe's place. This was in 2023. This is just to give you just a bit of the frequency of when you come together with Roseline sisters and play and create, and it's just so beautiful. Well, regardless of where you do it or who you do it with, it's so important. Here's beautiful Dartse, who comes on a retreat every year, but this was in 2023, and this is in the forest at La Baume. And I think so much of the sacredness of going to the cave is that walk up through the forest. It is a magical forest. And as I was walking up there this year, I did receive that the trees spoke to me because I was pondering how there are so many different stories of the Magdalene. There's so many different books written about her. Everyone's got a different truth. So many people channel her, different stories come through in the channeling. They're all true. They're all a part of her frequency. They're all a part of her codes. But when I was walking up that path this year, the trees in this forest said to me, we hold the truth. We hold the truth of humanity. And if we're cut down and another tree grows in our place, that tree holds the truth. We are the library of humanity's stories. And I found that amazing. It was like, oh, actually, that was the other thing they told me, that there are people who are librarians who can read the truth of the trees, and they're going to emerge more and more. So that was so beautiful. And that was in this magical forest that I received that message. There's just another of the group. Now this picture in the middle here of Mary Magdalene, that's actually at her, so in Saint Maximum La Sainte-Baume, the town that we stay near, that's where the basilica is. The Basilica of Mary Magdalene is there. And you see it when you're on the motorway, you just see this massive building arising from quite a small town. And that's a basilica, although it was never completed. And the basilica holds the skull of Mary Magdalene, And perhaps, oh, what was it? I think the femur. There was another part of her anatomy held there. And, as I'm sure you're all aware, that the church made a lot of money in the Middle Ages, saying that they had these particular relics. And regardless of whether those relics are from the actual being or not, the thing with those relics is that they hold the energy of devotion, because all of the people who have gone there and maybe given their money away to, well, to the church, but given it in honor of being in the presence of that relic, that's beautiful. And the relics therefore take on that energy of devotion to the Magdalene. So whether the actual bone belonged to Mary Magdalene or not is sort of beside the point. It's actually about the devotion that's shown by those going there, honoring the sacred feminine, honoring the feminine, counterpart of the Christ energy. It's really, really beautiful. So that's in the crypt under the church is where the skull is kept. And this little image, this photo I took, is actually of the Magdalene just opposite where the skull is. And as you can see, she's surrounded, of course, by roses. So, and this photo on the right was actually taken at the front. That was last year, taken at the front of the church in Sainte Marie de la Mer, the church where the Black Madonna is kept, the Kali, or Sarah Kali, Sarah. So this is something that we do as a day trip on this journey, and it's always powerful to go there and be in the energy of the Marys of the sea. So let me just see. Oh, this. I might as well give you a tour while I am. This is in the main square of St. Maximum La Sainte-Baume. So if you go there, go on Wednesday, it's market day, and the basilica is right near the main square. So you can visit the basilica and then you can go to the fabulous markets. Well, there's the pool at Philippe's. This is just showing more of the actual accommodation. We don't need that so much for what the purpose of this video. Now, this wonderful shop I discovered in 2025, this is in the square right outside the Basilica of Mary Magdalene. And this beautiful couple have opened this shop devoted to Mary Magdalene. It's the first time I've seen a shop devoted to Mary Magdalene. And in fact, I bought this, well, and the little bracelet I bought in that shop. I've got a few little bits around I bought in that shop. It was so sacred. And I'm sure if you go to St. Maximum La Sainte-Baume, because you'll go to the Basilica, you've probably gone into this shop. So beautiful and so sacred. And this is what I love about traveling and journeying to these sites and discovering these sacred little places, even in shops. The energy is there's such an energy of devotion. And all of this activates the codes in you, the Magdalene codes in you. Um, and here I am walking. This was last year, I think, because it was a bit cooler that day, walking up to La Sainte-Baume. So this is the path. And then you may start to go through the forest and go up onto the mountain. The cave is not right at the top. Well, it's near the top. And then it's an extra path, a bit more of a scramble to get to the top of the mountain, where there's a little chapel that is said to mark the point where she ascended into heaven. So that's just a little bit more on the property. I think, are they all the photos? Yeah. Oh, this is the beautiful Philippe who owns this property. So these are all the photos here, but it's not so much. I'm using the photos to just to activate in you this place, this beautiful land, this beautiful, incredible land. If you've got any questions, please just pop them below in the chat, or if any comments, because I'm sure some of you watching this have been to La Sainte-Baume or Sainte Marie de la Mer, or the town Saint Maximum La Sainte-Baume, and please share your experience. So anyone who's considering going, they can learn from your experience as well. Okay, so before I get into the next part, I want to share what I'm doing in between, because this is quite interesting. So I've got a week between retreats, and I always tune in and I'm like, what's calling me? Where do I need to go? What land is inviting me to come to it? And I was really surprised with what I received for this week that I have. It was Paris. Paris called me. I have not been called to go to cities. In the last 3 years I've been traveling. I'm like in and out. And in fact, I think I've been into Paris once, but it was like airport, train, like out. Um, and I got called to Paris. So I haven't been there since 2013, like spent time in Paris. And that was with my daughter, who's now 25, and she was 13 then. And I was holding a mother-daughter retreat then through southern France, but Heidi and I went to Paris first. And when I used to go to Paris most years, and I would go to all the old faithfuls, of course, Notre Dame. And when I had gone on that Templar initiation journey in 2006, which is the first time I visited the Languedoc area of France, Notre Dame is in the Templar initiations is the throat chakra, and and so I always love. And at the time I was a sound healer, and so going back to Notre Dame was always very important for me. And in fact, I held the sacred ceremony as part of that journey at Notre Dame for the throat chakra. So I'm always called back there. So, and of course, it's going to feel maybe a little different now with the fire and the renovations. But I particularly always like to go to the zero point out the front because that zero point, which flows down through France, is what is often considered the Rose Line. And in fact, going down through that, especially into southern France, there are so many Magdalene sites associated with that line. So I always do love to go to. There's just a little plaque there marking it as the zero point. Um, and Saint-Sulpice, of course, which has become very popular as a result of the Da Vinci Code. But also one of my favorite places is La Madeleine, the Church of Mary Magdalene. Um, and I just, in fact, that's the first place I always go. I always go to that church and sit. Sometimes I'll sit through a mass when a mass is being celebrated, and other times I'll just go and sit in and meditate and just be in the frequency of this church, that is church in the heart of Paris dedicated to Mary Magdalene. There's a few other places I like to go, but anyway, haven't felt called. This year, I've been called. So I'm going back. I'm going to visit those places. I'm going to go back to the Louvre. I haven't been to the Louvre for a very, very long time, but I want to see the original um, Dendera zodiac after having been to the Temple of Dendera in Egypt in November. I really want to see the original. So I'm going to go back and will not see, feel the original. So I will be doing that, but I'm also going to do a day trip down to Orleans because I am following the Rose Line, and in Orleans is the cathedral there. Although it's not dedicated to Joan of Arc, it's full of Joan of Arc, and I did go there as part of that Templar initiation journey in 2006 because that was the solar plexus initiation at Orleans. And I really feel Joan's calling me back. And I'm like, well, I'm doing a Roseline journey. I'll go. So I'm going to just do a day trip to Orleans. And then I'm going also at the end of Paris, I'm going down to Chartres Cathedral for a couple of days to walk the labyrinth again, which I haven't done since 2006. Because that's the heart chakra, of course, for the Templar initiations. So I'll be really connecting, and such a strong rose energy there. There is the Black Madonna. Um, I'm excited to go back to Chartres. I've planned it quite a few times and it's always fallen through, or just it hasn't worked out. It wasn't the right time. This year's the right time. So that's actually my journey. That's what I'm doing between retreats. And that is going to fill me and activate me to then move to my next journey. So I will share my screen again. This journey is a surprise journey. It's not necessarily one that you would associate with the Rose Line, even though in Sardinia, the island just off the mainland at the top is actually called La Maddalena. It's named for Mary Magdalene. And when I stayed there last year, I stayed in a little apartment right opposite the church to Mary Magdalene. So even though you wouldn't associate it so much with the Roseline energy, it's the water energy. This is the sacred waters. This is the Mary energy that has called me here. Now, I stumbled across Sardinia in 2024. My son, Max, and his fiancée, Cassie, she wasn't his fiancée then, she became his fiancée just after Sardinia, actually. um, they came to stay with me in Assisi, where I'd held a retreat, and they came to visit. And then we wanted to a little bit of beachside time, and we went to Cagliari, the capital of Sardinia, and just had 3 nights there. And while we were there, I said to them, I really feel like we've got to go to one of the ancient sites here. And I researched and I chose the well of Santa Cristina. And when I went to that well, and I'll show that in a minute, I was like, we have to come here. I have to bring a group here. There's a group of sacred priestesses, water priestesses, that I must bring back here. So this is a one-off because I knew it would just be happening the once. We had to come back. We had to stand around that well again, and we had to go to the sacred sites in Sardinia associated with the goddess, the water goddess. What is so beautiful is the ancient civilization, the Neuragic civilization, which was Bronze Age. They revered water as the goddess. So they didn't have figurines. They built these beautiful wells that water could flow through. Now, you may have seen, I've created 2 videos around this as well at Santa Cristina. One was done in 2024, where I actually walked down in the well at the end. And then there was a second video that I did last year because I actually stayed on the site of Santa Cristina, and my friend and I stayed in one of the little monks' cabins that's been done as an amazing Airbnb if you ever want that experience, if you go to Sardinia. But it's the waters that call you here. It's so powerful. The Mary energy is so powerful. So if you go, don't just go for the beaches or this is called the pools of Venus where I'm swimming here. This is on the eastern side of Sardinia. Like, look at that. And there aren't always that many fish. It's just that the fellow on the boat, the driver, threw some bread in the water, in case you're wondering, when I just happened to jump in. So, but the waters, oh my gosh. So, this entire journey is about honoring the waters, the sacred waters, the Mary frequency, the waters in our body. And if you watch my last video that I created around the light in the waters and how the way that we program that light in our waters is through self-love, that's what this journey is going to be. It's a journey of self-love. It's a journey of devotion to the waters outside of ourselves and inside of ourselves and the great goddess of the waters. So this is going to be an incredible journey. Now, obviously not everyone can join me on this journey. And in fact, there are just 4 places left on this journey. But I wanted to share this with you to activate this memory in you. I'm sure if you're watching this, you have been a priestess of the sacred waters. They're across all civilizations. But this one has really called me. And I'll know a lot more once the group is there, because that's what often happens is when I start to channel, when the group is together, that's when I really discover what it's all about. Why we're here. Why has this land called us here? So let me just do a little bit of activation for you, just taking you through some of these sites. I've written this. We will walk in devotion to this powerful expression of the great goddess. We will immerse ourselves in the frequency of this ancient land. We will swim and play in her arms. We will celebrate her in ceremony. We will remember our many incarnations throughout the world as priestesses of the sacred waters. We will undergo rebirth in the sacred waters of Gaia. That's this journey. What makes this journey extra special is we have a beautiful sacred masculine energy as part of it. This is the first time I've had this on one of my journeys. And this beautiful neuragic shaman, Alessandro, he's in his 30s, the most gorgeous man who's carrying the history, or not the history, he's carrying the codes of the neuragic shamans. And in this beautiful little village, Estesili, he has created a neuragic temple remembering the ancient ceremonies. And we're going to have 2 days immersed in this energy and in ceremony with him, which is really going to be amazing. So this is a view actually from one of the sites right near the village of Estezili. So this is just to give you a sense of this land. Let this land activate you. And I love that there's some water as well on this, even though this is in the middle of Sardinia, but that's one of the lakes. Let this water and this land activate you. Okay. This image is just over on the eastern side of Sardinia, where we'll be staying towards the end, looking down on those waters. So in those waters here, the pools of Venus of that picture I showed you before is in there. Okay. Now, when we depart from Cagliari on this journey, we're going to this ancient cave and it's massive. Now, I've included just this small picture of the cave because to me it looks like a dragon. Like, can you see a dragon there? And this cave, we actually didn't have an intention to go here. And Anita, who I was traveling with, when we came out at the airport, she saw just a big ad for this cave. And we said, let's go. And it's a cave that is, the water does flow through there when it's in the heavy sort of rain season, but otherwise you can walk through it. And it's majestic, majestic. I can't even begin to describe it. It's like being in the most incredible natural cathedral. And it's almost a kilometer to walk through it. And so this is going to be the start of this journey. And then when we get to the other side, when we walk through, there is forest there where the river flows, and this will be the opening ceremony. So this, I'm just got full tingles talking about it. So if you go to Sardinia, whether with me or just go there, be sure to go to this Grotta di San Giovanni. Um, so from there, we head up the west coast and we'll probably stop at a beach for a sacred swim or everything to do with water will be very reverent. It'll be very sacred. And so we will swim, weather and everything permitting, before we go to our guest house in Sorradilli. And then the next day is when we actually go to the Pozzo di Santa Cristina. So the Pozzo is the well. This is the well. This is me going down the stairs into the well. Um, and as I said, I'll link those two videos below if you want to see more of the well and see the surface of the well. This is so sacred. Unfortunately, they've blocked the well, so the water doesn't rise up and down the way that it would have. But it is aligned with the equinox. And this whole site is a neuragic archaeological site. So as well as the well, there is a Neuragic village there. There is also, because obviously it was turned, it's called Santa Cristina because it became a Christian site, and so there's also a little village there to do with that, and that's where we stayed in this little monk's hut. So it really, please, if you go to Sardinia, visit this well. It is absolutely magical. And if you feel called, come and join me because I had this vision of the group being around it. And it's just once. I'm just going once. So if you feel called, go to this well. Anyway, then this is the next day. We will go to, we're going to Estezili, but on our way, we are going to this beautiful town on the water, different waters here. Here there's a rushing river that has hot springs in it. And of course, there are Roman baths there. For Don Giannis, there are Roman baths there. So if there's Roman baths there, you know the waters are pretty good. Okay. And this whole site is still being it's still an archaeological site. They're still digging there. But you can't swim in these baths now. It's not like Bath, but you can go on the river. There's, I think, I've probably written there either in the 18th century or thereabouts. they built just some small baths just on the side of the river, and the water from the river feeds them hot baths. So we're going to go there and experience the water of this river there before we explore the Roman baths. So this is, again, all of this will be done in full ceremony of honoring the water and honoring the places and honoring ourselves and the waters within ourselves. Oh, and then we head to Estazili, where Alessandro is. Here I am with Alessandro in 2025. Now, he has a beautiful story, which you might read. So I've got it up there, but he grew up in Cagliari, but he visited his grandparents in this village in his holidays and so on. And he, as an adult, he realized he wanted to really. There were so many ancient neuragic sites around this village, and he carried this wisdom, the shamanic wisdom of the neuragic people. And so he wanted to highlight and bring people to the village and these sacred sites. So the village, the people of the village actually donated a house to him that was badly in need of a bit of DIY. And he did that with the help of the village. He created what's now called the Neuragic Temple, and we stayed in it last year. And this is where we'll be holding our circles when we're not on site at one of the sites. We'll be in this beautiful Neuragic Temple. And he calls people to this site. He holds events at this in the Neuragic Temple, but he also has all the village involved. So there'll be village mamas who cook the meals. And they host the people at the retreats, but not in their home. It's like anyone who has a spare apartment, and mostly they're two-bedroom. The people on the retreats stay in those apartments, and breakfast is provided, and you have your own room, and it's your own space. It's just shared with one other retreat participant. So this is what we'll be doing on our retreat. So it is so much the village being involved, and it's really brought the village back to life. It is such a beautiful story, a reality. And so this is where we're going to be for 3 nights. So here is the temple. So this is the room in the temple where we'll be holding our some of our circles, or this is the veranda outside, the balcony, the outdoor area where we may also hold circle. We'll just see. It's all weather dependent. But this is the Neuragic Temple where we're going to be. And this is the view. This is when I was there in 2025. This was the sunset. So this is sacred. And then in between, Alessandro is going to, well, on the opening night, I think, no, it's the next day. So on the full day, he's going to take us through a 4-hour medicine wheel workshop. Is that this day? Oh no, that's the second day. Oh my gosh, there's so much on. So on this first day, where Alessandro is going to just share his wisdom around the Neuragic civilization. We'll go to the small village in the small museum in the village, which has a lot of the ancient relics from the Neuragic civilization and pre-Neuragic. And then he will give us a sacred water blessing, which I was so fortunate to experience last year. And this is the Neuragic water blessing. And so we will be doing that. And we'll have a more chilled afternoon. And then it's the next day that we actually have, I think I'll hold a circle that afternoon. And then the next day, Alessandro, he's in command. And so he's going to take us through the Neuragic Medicine Wheel workshop. And that's a 4-hour workshop. This will be done at some of the sacred ancient sites. So this is going to be incredible. I have not experienced this. So this will be amazing. Having his sacred masculine energy weaving and holding us in the waters of Sardinia. Just really incredible. Actually, there's a story I wanted to tell. This is a complete aside. I wanted to tell it at the beginning. I forgot. And if you've lasted this long in, you get this story. This morning I was walking on the beach and big swell. So there were quite a few surfers. And often there's a couple, but in the beach it's fairly quiet, the beach I live by. Um, so many surfers out, and they were mostly men, a few women, mostly men, all ages, all walks of life. That's what I love about when they're out in the surf, it doesn't matter. And I was looking and I thought, yes, there are certainly quite a few women surfers, but there's still the majority of men when I observe. You know, it's mostly men out in the surf, certainly more than women. And I just went, they're out in the arms of the Great Mother. And when they're out there, they leave all the earthly stuff on the shore. It's just them and the waves and the ocean. And they might just sit on their boards and look out at the ocean. And they're not very often talking, like probably if it was a group of women, they might have a chat. No, often just in their own space with the water. And they wouldn't name it that way, but I'm like, this is a way that men commune with the sacred feminine, with the sacred waters. And it really, I actually got quite teary as I was watching them this morning. And of course, they're not going to use that terminology. Well, most of them wouldn't. Actually, I know a couple of guys around here who do, who surf, but most wouldn't. But they're in stillness, you know, and they're with the waters. Anyway, then I was thinking about this journey and I thought how beautiful that we have this sacred masculine energy holding these ceremonies for us. So this is Esther Zilli. Okay, so we will then the next day, we will head to the east coast to Carlagononi. And here is we'll be staying just out of the town in a hotel that I spotted this year but didn't stay at. That actually sits up high and looks out over the ocean, and it's right near an archaeological site of a Neuragic village, so you can walk there. I've got a photo further down. But here is where we do our boat trip. So we're here to do the boat trip to the pools of Venus, to some of the beaches that sort of that only a boat can get to along here. It is incredible. This is incredible. The waters are so powerful. We go into the Blue Merino caves. Like, this is an amazing day with the goddess. So we will be doing that. And then our final evening, we will, after our boat trip, we will eat at a restaurant near the marina as our farewell. But, but wait, there's more. Are you feeling activated by this? I really hope you are, because you are receiving the codes as I talk through this. And that's why I've never done this before, but this is why I wanted to do it, so that we all get the activation. So the next day we go to this incredible, incredible well. We're heading northwest now, and inland again into the mountains. It's quite tricky to get to, but this well at the Fonte Sacra su Tempiesu. Fonte Sacra, excuse my pronunciation, Fonte Sacra su Tempiesu, and it's at Arune. And it's not so busy because it's actually quite tricky to get to, and you've got to walk down to it. But oh my gosh, this will be our closing circle, will be held here. There's still some water running through. The water flows through from up here, flows down through this channel here, and then down. And then there's a little area in there through and then out. Oh my gosh, the energy on this land. And when you're standing there and you look out, you're looking out across at these mountains. It is just spectacular, spectacular, very sacred, the perfect way to complete this journey with the water goddess. And then from there, we go back to Cagliari. Now I've got a couple more pictures here I just love to show you. So this is actually at Santa Cristina. This is the Neuragic there, and you can actually go inside and go up the stairs inside. They've got steps to the top. It's got a very strong energy. You know, they say, oh, it was used as a storehouse or things like this, but it's got a pretty sacred energy there. Oh, there's just some food to entice you. There's me back at one of those beaches that we stop at on the boat trip. And I've got think there's another image here. Oh, yes. So this is one of the places Alessandro takes us. Oh, no, no, this isn't. I've shown that. This is right near our final hotel. And I said there is an archaeological, a Neuragic site nearby. And this is there. So our hotel has a similar view straight out over the ocean. And this is where we, or the sea, I should say, this is where we visit the pools of Venus and so on. So there. Breathing that in. Okay. Let me stop the sharing there. Hmm. I am so excited now after going through that with you. Now, if you have been to Sardinia, if you've been to any of those places, if you would love to go, share in the chat below, if the or in the comments below, if you were if there was somewhere particular that activated you, let me know. Where did you feel an energy, or it might have been an image, or you may have just heard me say something and uh, you felt a rush of energy. So know that you have received activations, and this is this is really exciting for me to do it this way so that I can actually share this land that I've been upon. I can share it with you. Um, Now, I've still got so much more. After I leave Sardinia, I am actually going to the Languedoc part of France, to Alais-les-Bains, and I'm going to have quite a few days there on my own, going to a lot of the sacred sites to do with the Magdalene, with the Rose Line that I visited and I used to take when I took journeys in around that 2008, 2009 period, and afterwards, and we would go to the Languedoc as well as Provence. We would go to a whole lot of amazing sites there. So I'm actually going to go back and spend some time there, and because maybe 2027. So anyway, also water sites. And this is the thing with these Magdalene sites. So often the Mary frequency comes through, the sacred water, the primordial waters. That is where the Mary frequency comes from. This is why so many of those sites are near water, or near wells, or near rivers. Mm, the goddess is there. Okay, that's enough talking for me for one video. You can see why I didn't do it all in one go. Thank you for joining me on this little preview of the first part, anyway, of my 2026 Roseline travels in Europe. I'm looking forward to reading your comments about this, and I will create part two very soon so you can continue the journey with me and receive a few more activations. Rose blessings to you.